Hello, 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 and welcome. If you can hear me, drop a 1 in the chat. I am coming to you live, testing out some new software that I have, and also, well, not software, testing out my new microphone. So hopefully you can hear me loud and clear. And today we are going to be talking about a topic that is one that quite often comes up when I'm working with my coaching clients and just authors in general who tend to be unsure of where to get started, where to go, and what to do. And so through that, I've kind of noticed a few, not kind of, but I've noticed a few commonalities of where really the issue is the goal setting and what exactly it is that we're looking for and what we're trying to accomplish. And so today I'm going to talk to you about that and specifically how to set clear goals to get more sales. And so this is going to be 3 steps to reach more readers. And let's go ahead and get started. So if you are watching replay, go ahead and add a hashtag replay. And if you're tuning in live, let me know where you are watching from and what your books are about. So let's get started. Okay, so I am Ashley, the owner of Shep Publishing House, and we help authors get from the page to the people with efficient and effective marketing strategies so they can sell their books, reach more readers, make more money, and change more lives. And so, just a little bit about me, I'm a wife and a mom of 2. I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old at the time of this recording. And so, just keep that in mind as you are thinking about, well, okay, are these things possible for me? They definitely are, I promise. You can reach the goals that you have with some focus and clear goal setting, like we'll talk about. So I am a book marketing strategist, and that means that I help authors to be able to fine tune their audience, to understand who it is that they're selling to, and then also a self-publishing consultant. And so I help self-published authors to be able to avoid costly mistakes, which can include not just cost as in terms of money, but also time and energy, because often as self-published or indie authors, all of those things are we are often trying to figure all of that out. And so getting those strategies to know what exactly it is that you should focus on is going to be key. So then I have over 13 years as an entrepreneur in different areas. And so I have kind of seen it all, maybe not all, but seen a lot and done a lot. And so I'll be able to use that to help you today. And then also I'm an author myself. And so that's something that I think kind of helps me stand out from the crowd, is that most book marketers are not also authors. So if you're just now joining, go ahead and add a 1 in the chat if you can hear me, because I am testing out a new microphone. And then also let me know what your books are about. And then these are some of the places I've been featured. So just kind of a little street cred there. Okay, so I often hear from authors that they want to get their book out there. And if you have heard that phrase before, drop a 2 in the chat. Or if you've said that before, that you are just wanting to get your book out there when it comes to figuring out how to sell your book or who to sell your book to. And I say that because that's the number one phrase that I hear from authors that I'm either having conversations with about what are your book goals, what do you want to do, or people who come to me and say, okay, well, I just wrote a book, how can I get more sales? And I find that people use that phrase as get their book out there, but they're not really quite clear or quite sure about what exactly that means. And so I like to ask, when people say get your book out there, out where? Where are we going? Where is there? Who all gonna be there? What exactly is it that we're talking about? And it's something where when I ask and I press, people are like, oh, well, actually, I just want to sell a lot of books. And again, that's not really clear. That's not something that's going to help you to get the goal, to get your results, and to reach your goals that you want to reach. And so I encourage these folks who I speak to, and generally these are on like consult calls to see if we're a good fit for marketing or publishing. And I encourage people to think about, or encourage you as an author to think about, where is there? So where are you trying to go? What kind of goal are you trying to reach? And how can we be more specific with that? And so one of the first questions that I ask potential clients or ask authors that are in my free Facebook group, which if you haven't joined, it's Sell More Books. So you can go ahead and find that, and I'll put the link in the description for this video. But I say, okay, so let's really think about this. And we can think about it from two approaches. So I always ask authors, what does success look like for you? And I also ask, what are your goals? And often those two things feel like they're overlapping, but they're not. They're very different. And let me get some water real quick. And if you heard that noise, I'm sitting on a yoga ball. This is kind of the setup in my office, but it was helpful during pregnancy, and then I just kept it around. So anyway, what does success look like for you? And so that's the opportunity for you to kind of dream big, to think about, okay, well, I want to be featured in this magazine, or I want to get my books in Barnes and Noble, or I want to be on Oprah's book club, or whatever the case may be, or Oprah's favorite things, whatever it is. That's where you're like, okay, these are the big, bold, audacious goals, those things that are like, okay, if I look back on our time working together, I can say, okay, we did that. Like, that was monumental, or that was something I've always wanted to do, and I've been able to accomplish it by doing these steps to get my book, quote unquote, out there. So then I ask, okay, let's think about SMART goals. And when we think about goals, often it's something where people are not using that SMART framework. And so the reason why it's so important to do that is because if you're coming from the corporate space, you're familiar with SMART goals. If you're not, it's a framework that helps you to be able to make goals that are actually ones that are not easily, but ones that are clearly defined and that you can attain them within a certain time period. And so SMART is an acronym, stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound or timely. And so I often encourage the authors that I work with, or not often, but one of the first questions once we start coaching, or even before we get to the coaching standpoint, if we're just kind of talking to see if we're a good fit, is to decide on a SMART goal. Because yes, it's cool to say, okay, yeah, I want to get my book in Barnes & Noble. That is a goal, but is it necessarily a SMART goal? Is it something where it's time bound? So by when? By the end of the year? Within the next 5 years? In all of the Barnes & Nobles? Is it something where you're talking about just the local location? And the reason why you want to do that is because each of those different things I've said require different types of work. They require different elements in order to reach that goal. And so if you are focusing just on the general goal of, okay, well, I want to do this thing, or I want to just do this thing, and it's not very specific, then you're not going to get to those results as quickly, and you're going to be able to be much more distracted along the way. And so I always encourage to do a SMART goal in order to reach whatever it is that you're doing. So that might look like, by November, I'm going to have published this book, and I'm going to have completed my book launch. And that might result in selling 500 copies. So something that's time bound, something that's specific, something that's measurable. And with that, it helps you to be able to actually see, did I achieve my goal? And I know, like I said, coming from corporate, it's something that is used, and it might seem like, okay, well, why do I need to make this framework? Or why do I need to have this structure? And there's validity to it. There's a reason for it. And it's because if you are not sure what your goal is down to like the nitty gritty, then you're really not going to be able to reach that goal, because you don't actually know what it is. You're trying to hit a moving target. You're trying to hit something that's not clearly defined. So my first tip is to narrow down your focus. So decide what exactly it is that you want to focus on by creating a SMART goal, and then really dig into that, really hone in on it, and use that to not get distracted. And so we're in a time period right now, at the time of this recording, it is 2024, it's September 2024, and we're leading up to a presidential election, and there are lots of opportunities to get distracted. And just in general, life is life right now for folks. There's inflation and really corporate greed. That's another conversation for another day. Plus inflation. And it's something where you can get very distracted and very caught up in everything that's going on outside, or everything that's going on outside of your control. And that's something that I was working on a piece of content that I'll share later for an upcoming book that I'm doing this year. And I'll talk more about that on another episode of this, I guess. But one thing I mentioned in the book that I was writing is that my books came out during COVID. And so I became an author during COVID. And it was something where, because there was so much, I won't say foolishness, nonsense, so much chaos going on outside, it was with George Floyd's murder, and then all these other things that were happening. And then I had just had a child. And so I had a 6-month-old during all that. And I was like, okay, well, let me write a book because it fit the need that I needed at that time. Anyway, I say all that to say, we can't control the outside world. We can't control, to some degree, of course, there's exceptions, but to some degree, the things that are happening within our homes, within our minds. And if those are things that are not under your control, there are things you can do to try to get more control over it. Of course, you have kids, or if you have kids, then that's a factor. I have 2 children, like I mentioned earlier. If you have somebody that lives with you, a partner, or you're taking care of a family member, stuff like that, yes, you have those things that are exceptions and things that are going to affect what you're able to do. However, you have to really think about, okay, what's the most important thing to me right now? And how is what I'm doing going to affect my future? And so for me, that helps me to kind of stay focused, and it helps me to really prioritize things, because when I think about, okay, well, I'm writing these books so that I can leave a legacy, or I'm writing these books so I can cover daycare costs, or I'm making sure that I'm talking about my book so that I can generate leads and clients into my business. And so really considering and focusing on, okay, why is it that you are focusing on this goal? Why is this goal so important to you? Because when you're building and when you're growing your book business, because yes, your book is a business, it can be overwhelming, it can be tiring, it can feel like you are just ready to quit. And if you are not honing in on what that goal or that focus is, then it gets very easy to become distracted, especially in a season like this. And so wrapping up point 1, narrowing down your focus. Don't be distracted. There's a lot going on outside. And also considering the things that are coming into you from, let me rephrase this. The things that are becoming like shiny objects. And so especially in the online space, if you are obviously you're listening to this online, if you're a business owner or if you are an author, you are inundated with lots of different opportunities, lots of different programs, lots of different things that are like, okay, this is the cheapest price it's ever going to be, or this is the last time it's going to be offered. And it can feel like you have to do certain things, like you have to sign up for this program, you have to enlist in this thing, or you have to buy this thing. And you have to really consider, if you have certain goals that you're trying to achieve, like let's say using our Barnes & Noble goal, or if you are trying to sell a certain number of copies of your book, or you're trying to cover certain expenses with your book royalties, you have to consider, do those things align with my goal? Are those things distractions, or are those things going to be things that support me and help me get closer to my goal? And that can be really hard, because there are always so many things to focus on as an author and a business owner. And so it's something where you have to be very persnickety and very particular about the things that you're giving your energy to, whether that's in business or in your everyday life. That's a sermon for another day. So really focus on doing things that align with your goals and on your focus until you reach a point within your book business journey that you feel like, okay, I can kind of divert my attention to this thing. All right, next point in helping you to get your book out there and having clear goals and clear expectations is to prioritize profit. Now, this might seem like, how can I say this? It might feel as if this isn't something you should really focus on, because maybe you're so focused on book sales, or maybe it makes you feel weird or icky or like money grubbing if you're like, I'm going to focus on getting to the bag or getting to the money, and not in a way that you have to be entirely overcome with hustle culture. I don't mean that. I mean that focusing on making a profit from your books. Now, hear me when I say this. I'm not saying it in a way that's the only goal, or that's something that is supreme over other things in terms of prioritization. And let me retract that. I want to say this in a way that will be heard. So I don't mean that making money from your books should be the only goal and that's the only thing you should be focused on, but to some degree, making money from your books should be the primary goal and primary focus. And let me explain why. Not from a standpoint of loving money or loving what money does. However, money is a tool. Money is a resource. Money's not good or bad. The way that you attach an emotion to money is what's good or bad. So obviously I'm not encouraging you to serve money as a believer. I'm not saying that. However, in our society, in our world, money is used to do all of the things. So whether it be, okay, if I sell more books, I can now donate to the Boys and Girls Club down the street from where I grew up, and now I can help those kids. Or now I can purchase more books to be able to give to this small business organization who's helping new business owners to be able to create their business. And so not from the standpoint of how much money can you hoard, but how can you use money as a tool to be able to either expand your message, propel your own business to be able to then help other people. And often I find that authors are so focused on, oh, well, okay, how many books have you sold? Or how many page reads have you gotten on Kindle? And no shade to Kindle, but I'm over on Threads, and people get really obsessed about those things. And it's like, okay, let's think about it. At the end of the day, Kindle is paying you 0.004 cents per page read. So whatever that math is, like people would have to read multiple millions of copies of your book or multiple million pages, in order for you to see some of the same results outside of that. But okay, tangent for another day. So it's something where you want to really consider, what are going to be the opportunities that I can use to be able to focus on making more money per book, or making more money from my books, or things outside of my book. I'm going to do another training on book bundles, because I'm finding that a lot of authors are focusing on tangible items. They're focusing on things that they're ordering, and then they're hoarding these things because people don't end up buying them. And there's other ways to really see a profit from that, and also that are less work. So long story short, what I'm saying here is that prioritizing profit makes it possible to do everything else. I was at a conference that was hosted by Ashley Kirkwood, and there was something that she said, or it might have been from one of her YouTube videos, but I did attend a conference with her. She stated that if you are focused on impact, you need to focus on income, because your income helps your impact. And so obviously she didn't use those words, but just that's the gist of it. And so, for example, if you have more income from your book business, if you're selling more books, you're able to hire help in and outside of your business. So I'm able to hire a virtual assistant to help me a couple hours a week in order to get some of these things done that just pile up. And so it's something where she can help with social media. She can help with my emails. She doesn't always do those things each week. However, I have the freedom to choose and decide what are going to be the things that she works on, and then what are going to be the things that I work on. And so I'm making the shift to make sure I'm working on things that are income generating activities. And then she's working on those things that are not that, because there's certain things as the author that really just you have to do. Like, it's just you are the one that needs to be responsible for it. And then there's other things that somebody else can do. And I know it feels like we have to do all of the things. Excuse me. Let me get some more water. It feels like we have to do all of the things, but in actuality, we don't really need to be doing all of the things. There's some things that she's more efficient at than I am. There's a lot of things actually that she's more efficient at than I am. Shout out to Hayden. That's my BA, my client relations manager. There's things that she is better at doing than I am at doing. And so why would it doesn't make sense. Why would I spend time trying to figure this thing out? And why would I spend the energy trying to do it and then getting frustrated when it's like, okay, I can pass this off to her. I'm helping her to be able to provide income for her family. Our kids are around the same age. And so it's like, it's something where you can support somebody else and then also not to have to frustrate yourself with doing that thing. And so that could also look like hiring help in your home, or hiring out for things like laundry service. I know that's pretty popular where I am in Atlanta, that people send their laundry out, and it's pretty actually affordable and reasonable for the amount per pound. And it could look like, okay, having a cleaner come once a month to deep clean your house, and that helps with the property value and also helps with your just overall feel of how you feel in your home. Because as you're trying to build your book business, and as you are growing and trying to reach those folks who really need what you have, whether it's your offers from your product, services, or the events that you are creating, all of those things take time and energy. And so really taking care of your home and your space is key, because that's the place that you rest. And especially if you are working from home, it's a place that you spend a lot of time in. And so really considering how profit should be prioritized in your book business is something that I want to really just drill into authors, because there's just this perception that you are not able to make money as an author. And I get where it comes from. However, I don't get why people feel like they have to stay there. And it could just be me in terms of, I was not somebody who always dreamed of becoming an author. And so I came into it from a separate business, from my Chef Special Chef business, and then have evolved into Chef Publishing House from that. And so I understand that a lot of authors, they're in it for their passion. They're in it because they feel like they have a book on their heart, and that's fine and that's good. But it's like, if you want people to read this book and you want people to find you, you have to prioritize things that help that happen. And if you're not somebody who wants to do that yourself, because a lot of authors have said that they hate marketing, then you have to prioritize profit so you can hire somebody to do those things for you. Because what would be the point of you writing a book and then nobody finding out about it? And I think from a biblical standpoint, we are set apart. We are supposed to be a light to others. We're set apart as a city on the hill. We're supposed to be the salt of the earth. And we can't be the salt of the earth if we don't ever tell people about the things that we're doing that can help them. We can't keep our books to ourselves. We can't keep our programs and our services and our offers to ourselves and then expect people to buy them to be able to continue this dream. And so I really just encourage you, and I know I'm hammering this home, but I really just encourage you to shift your thinking. And instead of focusing on how many books have I sold, really consider how much have I made from my book business. And tweaks for that can be, maybe you need to adjust your price point on Amazon. If your book's on Amazon or on your site, wherever you're selling it, maybe you need to adjust it to increase your royalties a bit. I know after I reached 100 reviews on my Daniel Fast devotional, I increased the price of the book. And then after I reached 200 reviews, positive reviews, I increased it a little bit more. And also just due to inflation and the print cost. I know Amazon in particular has increased the cost of the books that they are charging for us to print them. And so it makes sense that you would also increase your price too, just to be able to cover those costs. And at least to the point where you're getting the same amount of royalties. I'm not saying increase it in some ridiculous way, but that's it. That's a relatively easy way to be able to adjust it. But if your book is not selling at that price point, then okay, let's think about that in a different way, because that likely means that there's something else going on. So in my case, my book was continuously selling and continuously getting those reviews. And so that's why I made that adjustment. And so just something to keep in mind, that as you are increasing your income, you're able to increase your reach. You're able to do things like run ads, and you're also able to take a break and still have your business support certain things that you need to pay and cover. And also your book is able to still continuously get out to folks, even if you're not actively promoting it. Because another quote that I got from a book that I'm reading right now, that's called Write Useful Books, is that the point of book marketing is to stop book marketing. So the point of book marketing is to not have to continuously market your book. And that, when I read it, I was like, oh yeah, duh, that is what it is that your point, the reason why you want your book to sell, and not saying that you won't ever have to market it, but you want to get your book to a point where it sells itself. And at the beginning, it takes some time. It takes a lot more time at the beginning to be able to have that happen. But as you continuously have your book out, as you're continuously appearing on different places like podcasts or speaking opportunities or selling books in bulk, then it's something where your book can eventually start to sell itself. And so there's also things you can put inside your book to help that happen. But let's go to the next point. So another way to help you set clear goals to get your clear outcomes is to take intentional action. And so with this, if you can't say amen, say ouch. This one, I'm also talking to myself to some degree, is that we can be so caught up in overconsumption of ideas, of podcast episodes, of trainings, courses, things like that, that we don't actually implement the things that we've learned. Dramatic pause. And so you want to make sure that you're not only consuming things that are going to help you move your book business forward and propel you to sell more books and reach more readers, but also that you are very intentional about actually doing the things that are asked of you or doing the things that you're learning. Because it doesn't make sense, and let me not say it doesn't make sense. It's not purposeful or productive for you to just consume and never create. So instead of just scrolling on social media, adding a post on social media, instead of just reading other people's emails, actually learning how to email your audience to increase your book sales, or learning how to read your audience to be able to let them know of places you've been featured. It's something where we can get real hyped up about, even especially going to events as well. Events make us really feel good. But at the end of the day, we have to really consider, is this an event that's going to move the needle forward? Is this going to be something that's going to help me, that I'm actually going to do the work? And so one thing I like to do is to actually do it at the same time. So if I'm watching a training, I will actually start doing the things that they're sharing. Obviously, this doesn't work for everything. If it's something that's like really high level that I'm not familiar with, then I can't do this. But if it's something where I have access to the replay of the training, I will. So let me tell you two options. So if I'm watching live, I'll take notes and actually try to walk through the process with them. If I'm watching the recording, I will either watch it at a slower speed so I can do the steps with them, or if it's something that I know, okay, I remember they didn't say it until this part, then I'll watch at a faster speed and then slow it down once I get to that part where they're actually giving the implementation steps. And then also setting goals with yourself of like, okay, if I'm going to invest in this program or I'm going to buy this book, then I need to have it completed by this date. And if I do, then I'm able to do something else, XYZ. I'm able to watch my show instead of do work that night or whatever the case may be. Whatever you have to do to kind of gamify and trick yourself into getting this stuff done is what you got to do. And with this, you also want to consider, what are your preferences? And so I speak to authors who say, okay, they don't really like social media. It's not really their thing. And especially the changes that happen on some platforms, the photo app, I won't call it out, but on some platforms, people are feeling like they're posting and they're not seeing the results that they want to see. And it's not really worth their effort and their time. And I want to encourage you to really remember that things take time, especially with the way the algorithm works, and even with email marketing. Even though it has a higher rate of return for every dollar you invest in email marketing at the time of this recording, then you generally get back between $37 and $42. It depends on your industry, but that's the average. But to really consider that it takes time. It takes time for people to see you. It takes time for the algorithm to be pushed out. It takes time for people to be able to agree to purchase from you. And so by not posting that content, by not sending that email, by not appearing on that show or applying for that interview, whatever the case may be, then you are basically kind of knocking yourself back to a further timeline. So if you are not scheduling out those things, because obviously you can't be everywhere at all times, by not recording that video, by not going live, by not doing XYZ, you effectively are kind of pushing back your results. And so make sure that you are being intentional about the things that you're doing and actually doing them consistently. And consistently can look like, okay, well, I'm going to post one video a week, or I'm going to schedule one email out a week. And if that's all you can do, then that's okay. But you can also consider other aspects that are going to multiply your efforts. So last week I was talking to an author on Threads, and she was just talking about how she doesn't like doing short form video. And so like Reels, TikToks, things like that, YouTube Shorts. And so I said to her, okay, well, but she said she was doing long form video. And so I said, okay, well, you can actually use AI to be able to chop those videos up. And I know authors in AI, we don't love AI. Okay, that's fine. I'm not talking about writing the book. I'm talking about using it in other ways to multiply yourself. So I said to her, I said, okay, well, you can use software to be able to chop that video up. So one of them that I've used before is called Vidyo. So it's, instead of the E, it's a Y. And then another one is Opus Clips. And so they have free and paid plans, and it just depends on whatever your preference is. But you can insert the video and it will actually chop up the video into smaller clips, and it can add captions for you. However, I do also recommend using a caption within the app that you're going to upload it in. However, you can do double the captions and then just make the caption a color that matches the background. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then just add in the comments, and I'll do a YouTube short on that, or a reel or Instagram or a reel on that. And so I shared that with her, and she's like, oh, okay, well, I mean, yeah, I can definitely do that. Like I can definitely upload it and then let it cut it up for me. And you can make adjustments to the clip length. It doesn't have to be exactly what is in there. You can adjust it and you can make your own clips. And then another strategy I shared with someone else who was asking about, do you blog on a normal basis? Because blogging is another thing that is helpful. It's more of a long game with SEO, search engine optimization, where you can be found online. And I said to them, okay, well, typically I was blogging about once a week, and I haven't got back on it, but I am going to in the near future. And it's something where you can actually use that same long form video. So as I'm doing this right now, I'm recording this long form video, and then there's other software you can put it in, and it will actually pull the transcription for you. And then that can become something you make adjustments to become a blog post. And then I'll also insert the video inside the blog post. So it's like I'm not doing more, I'm stretching out more from what I already have. So this is also something that my VA can help with, as I was talking about earlier. And it's something that you can do, especially if you're like, I'm a talker, I don't really want to write, even though if you're listening to this, you're probably an author, and so you probably are a writer. But at the same time, you're like, I want to write on my work in progress, or I want to write something else. You might not want to be a writer for a blog, you might not want to be a writer for social media, but use these different tools to be able to get these things done so that way you can have that reach and to be able to reach your goals. And so if this is making sense to you, let me know in the comments, and thanks for tuning in. And also be sure to share this out with someone who is an author who is just kind of struggling with their goals, or if you have an author friend who's like a business bestie, a biz bestie, then share this with them as well. And then when you're thinking about how you want to be intentional, I want you to consider your preferences. And I touched on this a little bit earlier, but consider your preferences in terms of the type of person that you are. If you're like, I don't like to talk, then okay, maybe you need to write some emails. Or if you're like, I don't like to be on video, same thing, maybe write some emails. Or I'm not on video right now. I have slides in Canva and I'm doing a voiceover situation. I am live, but I'm talking it out. I didn't want to be on camera today, so I didn't. And then I have other times where I am on camera and I batch those videos. Sometimes, not all the time. I batch those videos so that way I can have them to schedule them out. We're in a time where we have the ability to be able to use the power of the internet to be able to multiply ourselves. And I just think about another thing, and I know I'm talking about Threads a lot, but I think about when I talk to people on Threads, they're like, oh, I hate social media, or social media gets on my nerves. And when I say people, I mean authors. And one, I tell them, you don't have to use social media to sell your books. There were millions of books that came out before social media existed, hundreds of millions probably, before social media existed, and people sold their books. Now, does that mean that's the most efficient and effective way to sell your book? No, it's not. However, if you are so frustrated with it and you're like, I really can't do this and I don't want to learn to do it, or I don't want to hire somebody to do it, then find other ways to sell your book. You don't have to do it based on what everybody else is doing. You don't have to be all over book talk or be worrying about stuff on Instagram to get people to review your book. That doesn't have to be the way that you do it. There are built-in features, which I share in another video that I have about why your book's not selling on Amazon. And I'll link that in the description. But those are ways that in that video, I talk about ways that don't have anything to do with social media. And they also don't have anything to do with email marketing. If you're like, I don't want to do email marketing either. And so really consider and think about, okay, I have my preferences. These are the things I want to do in terms of selling my book. But you have to kind of decide, okay, how much uncomfortability am I going to have? Like, how important are my goals versus my comfort level of doing this thing? And can I modify that thing to be able to do something similar, or to be able to do something that still kind of serves the purpose without being so out of my comfort zone, if that makes sense? And so, for example, if you're someone who's like, I convert better talking to people, I'm able to sell books better, or I'm able to sell my programs and services better when I'm actually face-to-face talking to people, then you need to be on your events game. And you also just need to understand that means you're sacrificing something else for the time and energy that it takes to get to the event, to kind of be unsure of whether or not this event actually has your people. And so it's just a trade-off. Whatever it is that you decide to do in any of those aspects, it's always a time, money, or energy type situation. So think about how you want to spend yours. All right. Now, I know I said 3, but my last thing is kind of a bonus, is to reflect. And so reflect during the process and after the process. And when I say that, I mean reflect on your goals. So let's say, and I'll give an example actually of some goals that, let me do that now. So, okay, I was supposed to do it earlier, but I was talking, I was going on my soapbox. Okay. So here I'm sharing some of the goals that I had for my most recent book launch. And so this was for my Daniel Fast Meals cookbook, and it's the 21-day cookbook to feed your body and spirit. And so this is through my Chef Ashley Chef business. And so I had have an existing devotional on the same topic. And it's a 21-day fast to adjust your eating habits, as well as to spend more time with God. And so as a result of writing the devotional, I added on a cookbook for my food-based business. And so these were my goals that I had for this book launch. And so this was it was 12 weeks from last November to the last day was my brother's birthday. So in early February. And so for my goal, I wanted to complete my own first offset print order. So my first bulk book order, bulk printing order, not bulk book order. So Meaning that instead of uploading it to Amazon or uploading it to Amber Spark, I wanted to buy hundreds of copies of my book all at once. And I wanted to cover the cost of that with pre-sales, which I was able to achieve that goal and more. And so with that, I hosted a pre-sale. And so I also wanted to use the book launch to create a case study for my Shep Publishing House business. And so I was able to do that. And that's also available on my YouTube. It's my 10K book launch pre-sale case study. And so I'll add the link to that to the description. And so with that, I was able to share how I did each of those steps within my book launch. So the launch process, collaborating with folks, and creating partnerships and collaborations, email marketing, social media marketing, and then, lessons learned and things like that. And so then I also wanted to collaborate with organizations and churches. And now I know at the beginning I said to create a SMART goal. For this one, this collaborating with organizations, I didn't put the goal on here, but I had a goal of I wanted to reach out to 10 different organizations and churches to be able to do cooking demonstrations and even author visits. And I did reach out to the 10, and then 2 of them signed on. And so with that one, it was a little bit later in the game. I did it during the launch. I should have done it before the launch, but that'll be in a lessons learned activity. I just was focused on other things. And then the last ones, sometimes you do have to have goals that are not SMART goals. And so sometimes it's just things that are just intangible, that are not like cut and dry numerical options. And so for this, I was coming off of having a challenging pregnancy. And then also within the time period of the launch, I found out that I was not going to be, my contract was not going to be renewed with my 9 to 5. And then also my son had some medical conditions. And so it was just like, this was my first, and he's fine and I'm fine. So we're good. Praise God. But this was my first book launch after all of that. So this was like my first book launch for me that I was doing for my books as opposed to my clients' books. And it was something where I was like, I need to just really, after postpartum, come off of this and be like, okay, I still got it. I still have the ability. I'm still the launch queen, the book launch queen. And so I wanted to create a buzz around my book. And I had different markers and metrics for that. And then also generate revenue. And so I was able to do that. So I had a little over 2K in speaking engagements and bulk book purchases, and then the 3,300 and offset print costs. And then there were some other miscellaneous things that I did to increase my income from this book launch. And so you can check that out in the pre-sale book launch case study. But my point is that when you are focused on these goals, you want to be specific in those things that you have. And so when I was talking about this, I was saying reflecting. So during this time, during the launch, I'm just like going. After the launch, I had time to actually look and see, okay, these are the things that I did well. These are the things I need to work on for this next time. This is how I can make sure that I am doing a better job of this. And then these are the things that, oh man, this launch I have coming up, there's definitely certain things I'm like, oh, I definitely need to make sure I do this thing. Or I need to plan ahead for this thing. And often as authors, we are just in the thick of it and we're not. Sorry, I just had a flashback moment to one of the songs that my son listens to from the Backyardigans, and it's Into the Thick of It. Anyway, so what I was saying is that it's important to reflect afterwards, but also try to do it in the midst of it, because you can self-correct some of these things while you're actually doing your book launch or doing your book release. And so there were certain things that, for example, I mentioned on another video that I did about how overthinking almost cost me $400? No, $600, because I was debating when I was going to release my printable PDF version of the cookbook versus when I was going to upload it onto Amazon KDP and use the Kindle Select, because you can't have it available in 2 places. And so I did a video about that, and I'll add that to the links on this. And so there's things that you can do to adjust and self-correct while you're in there, while you're actually in the midst of it. But then there's times where it's like, okay, I need to look at this at a high level view, take a step back, and actually see and assess, okay, what could I have done retrospectively? And ways to do this, all of those platforms, if you're using social media, they all have metrics that you can use and take a look in. And so what I did is I went through and looked at, okay, how much reach did this post get? How many shares? How many comments? What are the comments? What are people actually saying? Why did that video get so many shares? Why is it something that resonated with people? What day did people buy the most? And so for the platform that I have, I did my pre-sales on my own site. And I used Kartra to get the analytics. And so with that, they have sales pages, email marketing, things like that. And so I took a look and I said, okay, well, I noticed that people are opening my emails at this time, but they're not actually purchasing until this time. And so using that information, I know, okay, well, maybe I can adjust when I send the emails, or maybe I can adjust what I say in the emails. And it's something where it helps you to make data-driven decisions as an author, as opposed to just seeing what works by throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticks. And I'm finding often that authors are just throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. And they're doing the things that they feel like everybody says they have to do. And that's making you tired, it's making you exhausted, and it's making you overworked, and you're not getting the results you want to see. And so I was talking with a potential coaching client last week, actually a week from today, and she was telling me all the things she's doing. She had multiple series that she is releasing. She has an existing series and she was working on another series, and each one of them had 3 books. And she was wanting to get school visits. This was a children's book author. She was wanting to get school visits. And I mentioned to her, okay, well, let's really prioritize those goals. What exactly is it that you want to focus on? Because you're doing this and this and this and this and this and this. And then you're not seeing any of the results you want to see because you're all over the place. And I didn't say all over the place like, girl, you a mess, you all over the place, but more of like, you are an octopus right now. You have your tentacles, your hands in 15 different things, and you're not able to get a clear vision of what exactly is working, what you need to pull back on, and what your next steps are. That's a sound bite. Okay. I'm going to chop this video up and you will probably see that again. And so it's something where you really have to consider how much reflecting are you doing? Are you looking at more than just your sales? Because I know as authors, we get really focused on, oh, how many books did I sell? How many books did I sell? As opposed to what times of year am I selling this book? When should I be reaching out to podcasts in order to be able to appear on this timeline? Looking at those kind of things, because especially with the how many books that I sell versus the season of when I'm selling them, that helps you to create predictable revenue. So that way you can know, okay, well, this might be a month where I can focus on writing. And so, for example, for me, my Daniel Fast books, they sell throughout the year, but they sell really well from about like December to February. And then sometimes there's like another spike. And that has to do with when people are doing the Daniel Fast. And so I knew, okay, well, December through January, I can do a couple things. I can either coast and just like rest on that, or I can amp it up. I can focus on doing TikTok during then, because I know last year during that time period, I did focus on TikTok and it helped with sales. But then like, I don't be on TikTok consistently. That's not something I do because it's just not something that aligns with the rest of my goals. However, there are certain times of year that I need to make sure that I'm on there. And that can look like scheduling those things. It can look like batching that content. So I'll be working on that. And so it's something where you really want to focus on what's getting you the best results, and then repeating those things as opposed to just trying all the things and then never checking to see if all the things work. It's kind of like if you are around my age, I'm not quite an elder millennial, but I'm a millennial, a child of the 90s, when we had to take standardized tests. And you had that little bubble sheet, the Scantron, where you had to like circle in and you had to do it a certain way. And if you didn't, then your answer was going to get marked wrong. And then you had kids who would just Christmas tree it. And I'm speaking from a former education standpoint because I taught for over 10 years. You'd have kids that would just Christmas tree it. Essentially, authors are just Christmas treeing their marketing. And then they're just hoping for the best. And then you get your test back, you get your results back, and you're like, oh, I'm defeated. None of this is working. Because you don't have a plan. You haven't studied what works. You haven't looked at your marketing to see what's working for me versus what's just working for other people. And I'm not saying you don't need to test these things out. You obviously need to test things out. But there's certain things that, in general, if you do them, they will work consistently. But you have to do them consistently. And you have to look at your data and you have to make tweaks to them. So, all right. Now that is the end of our time. I want to check and see if there's any questions. I meant to say earlier to add those to the comments. But if you have found this helpful in terms of how to reach your goals and to be specific with those things. So just to reflect the things that we talked about earlier. In order to have clear goals, you want to narrow down your focus. You want to prioritize profit, and not in a money grabbing way, but in a way that's like profit impacts everything. Profit affects your impact, which impacts your income. And then taking intentional action in order to actually complete the things instead of just being a content hoarder and a course hoarder. And then the bonus one was to reflect on what works and then continue to do that. And so if you are looking for ways to get this done for you, then definitely reach out using actually, let me put the code back up for you. You can scan this code if you are looking on desktop, or you can visit chefpublishinghouse.com/coaching. Sorry, my other business was on the brain because I was talking about the cookbook. So you can reach out to, you can click the link there, and then you'll be able to see what options are available for coaching at this time. And so I'll put that link in the chat for you as well. And so if this has been helpful for you, please like, share, comment. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. If you are watching anywhere else, please follow for more strategies to help you build your book business so you can sell more books, reach more readers, make more money, and change more lives. Thanks.